Let's have a look at the top business news now. Brian Quinn is starting in China, in fact, where a major business summit is taking place under the threat, though, of an all-out trade war, Brian.
Indeed, Stuart. CEOs from around the world are gathered in Beijing for the China Development Forum, which kicked off on Sunday. Apple, Pfizer, and MasterCard among the firms whose leaders made the trip. The conference also attended by Republican Senator Steve Daines, a rare instance of dialogue between U.S. and Chinese officials since the start of the second Trump administration. Trump has already slapped 20% tariffs on all Chinese goods, accusing Beijing of taking insufficient action to stop the flow of fentanyl to the U.S. He signaled more tariffs to come on April 2nd, dubbing that Liberation Day. Those new tariffs were initially threatened to apply worldwide to all sectors. Trump aides now, though, say that they are likely to be narrower than initially expected. Chinese Premier Li Qiang said Sunday that his country is prepared for shocks that exceed expectations. But China is already struggling with slowing growth and weak domestic demand. The forum comes as foreign direct investment into China has fallen sharply, as we see here. 2024 saw just $4.5 billion of inbound FDI. That's down from a peak of more than $344 billion in 2021. Chinese officials and Western businesses alike are seeking to put a positive spin on what is clearly a challenging situation. Take a listen here.
Companies who are operating in China have been operating in uncertain environment for a long time. They've actually become resilient to managing trade disputes and supply chain shocks. So they're quite resilient, both domestic companies in China and multinationals here. But also it's because of the fundamental economics. China is the largest global exporter in the world.
Now, one of the sectors that seems unlikely to be spared from new Trump tariffs is automobile manufacturing, Brian.
So, Stuart, Trump has specifically called out the foreign automotive industry as a target for tariffs, citing European trade barriers for American cars in particular. Those Liberation Day tariffs set for April 2nd have car makers abroad rushing to ship new vehicles to the U.S. ahead of the deadline. The Financial Times reporting that European manufacturers sent 22% more cars to the States in February compared to last year. For Japan, that was 14% more. South Korea sending 15% more cars. Meanwhile, Mexico and Canada, which are tightly integrated into the U.S.'s own car-making supply chain, are also bracing themselves. Many American firms have facilities on either side of the border. They, too, have been shipping extra parts to their U.S. factories, stockpiling in the event that such shipments become prohibitively expensive after April 2nd. Many car parts cross the U.S. border as many as 7 times before a vehicle is fully assembled. Industry leaders say that kind of integration in the supply chain will be difficult to unwind in a short time.
Nobody's going to make a quick decision on production changes. It doesn't make sense. It's very capitally intensive. You have labor issues. Anything that puts a dampening on that overall production demand, if the consumer pulls back on spending, if prices became too high in the vehicle showroom, we as an industry don't want that.
What about the markets then, Brian? How are they shaping up today?
So Asian indexes were mixed ahead of that looming tariff deadline. Japanese tech investment giant SoftBank gained around 3% after a recovery in tech sector shares on Wall Street on Friday. The Nikkei in Tokyo, though, ending the day slightly in the red. Chinese indexes recovering from earlier losses. The Hang Seng in Hong Kong up nearly a full percent. Looking at an old chart there, but it is up more. Here in Europe, major indexes opening higher amid hopes that Trump's next round of tariffs will indeed be more limited than advertised. Defense shares leading the way. French military contractor Thales up nearly 3%. The CAC 40 here in Paris up around 0.75% at the open.
Finally, for business, Japan has seen a boom in tourism recently, including an increasing number of visitors from Russia, apparently.
So with European direct flights to Russia still banned, Russians are looking elsewhere for potential holiday destinations. They are increasingly turning their gaze eastward as a falling yen and a rising ruble have made Japan an enticing option. Luke Schrager reports.
Russians queuing in the cold might evoke thoughts of the later days of the USSR, but these Muscovites aren't on the hunt for food. They're seeking Japanese visas.
We've wanted to go for a long time. The fast process of getting a visa encouraged us. Nowadays it's more difficult to get to Europe. It only takes 4 or 5 days to get a visa to Japan.
Now I have the money to go, and I decided to do it, and the prices have dropped.
Direct flights to both Europe and Japan are still banned, with the numbers of Russians visiting Europe, around 300,000, plunging by 90% below 2019 levels. However, connecting flights to Japan have surged in number, and Tokyo made it easier for Russians to get a visa last year, no longer requiring them to submit detailed travel documents. What's more, Russians have seen an economic rebound thanks to Moscow's spending heavily on the Ukraine war, with a weak yen and a ruble gaining off the back of thawing relations between Moscow and Washington, helping disposable income.
An air flight is 50 to 70% of the total cost of travel. Even though the average bill to Japan, including tickets, is about $1,400 per person, this destination is very competitive with other countries. Moreover, it's still a long-distance destination.
Around 100,000 Russians visited Japan last year, a number set to double in 2025.
So Japan, a popular destination for people of all nationalities, including the Russians, especially now, as I've just read that cherry blossom season is officially underway. The sakura are in full bloom in Japan.
Very, very pretty.
Indeed.
Brian Quinn with the business news.